AI hardware transitions are accelerating so quickly that multiple generational leaps are now colliding in a single planning cycle. Accelerators run hotter, draw more power, and force operators to upgrade their infrastructure simultaneously. Yet the market often treats this as a simple real estate problem. The prevailing assumption is that a successful AI facility is defined by maximum accelerator density, exactly how many chips can fit inside a building. But extreme density pushes electrical and thermal requirements past the breaking point. The massive power draw and concentrated heat generation are crashing directly against immutable local grid capacities and hard thermodynamic limits. Optimizing solely to pack more silicon into a room creates a facility that looks impressive on paper, but is disastrously fragile in practice. Planners can no longer look at the individual server, the rack, or even the data hall as isolated components. The unit of design has to change. This is the core architectural framework proposed by Scott O. Anderson in Designing AI Data Centers. The new unit of design is the entire intelligence production system. This system must operate as a unified cyber-physical AI factory. Compute, networking, electrical power, thermal management, and security cannot be treated as separate engineering disciplines. They are one deeply interdependent architecture. The winning facility will not be the one with the largest collection of chips. It will be the one that reliably converts constrained power, water, and land into useful intelligence with the absolute least operational fragility. Operators must define the intelligence product, training, inference, or retrieval, which dictates hardware. Facilities require a flexible density envelope. Designing for a single hardware generation ensures obsolescence. Nodes must then be connected. Network topology is selected by collective communication behavior, not just bandwidth. This precision is required because distributed training splits massive workloads across thousands of GPUs. The constant exchange of gradients and state data means the network's behavior is entirely indistinguishable from the application's overall performance. Deploying extreme compute capacity without engineering a network fabric to match that specific workload does not build an AI factory. It only builds a highly expensive bottleneck. This chart shows projected data center electricity demand. Based on International Energy Agency projections, global consumption could reach roughly 945 terawatt-hours by 2030. That is more than double the 2024 level, colliding rapidly with flat or capped local grid capacities. Because of these strict grid limits, electrical power can no longer be treated as an endless utility. Securing megawatts is now the primary constraint, turning power availability into a strict deployment schedule. Energy input immediately equals thermal output. Cooling architectures and water consumption must be engineered simultaneously with power intake. This balance forces trade-offs. Reducing water consumption is a failed sustainability metric if alternative cooling causes a massive carbon increase due to higher power draw. The dependency is absolute. Achieving maximum accelerator utilization offers zero value if the resulting heat output collapses the facility's thermal envelope. To protect this physical investment, the security architecture must extend beyond the network layer.
Defending an AI factory requires securing the operational technology, the physical power and cooling systems, as fiercely as the IT data workloads. However, security introduces friction. Overly aggressive network segmentation might look secure on paper, but it can isolate compute nodes, introduce latency, and destroy the strict synchronization required for distributed training. This brings in governance. Beyond what the physical and logical systems are capable of doing, organizations must define who actually holds the authority to approve, override, and explain those actions. Planners must write an explicit operating constitution. They need to predetermine who owns the physical risk, which telemetry data is authoritative, and exactly who holds the authority to stop the system in a crisis. Without deeply integrated security and governance, a cyber-physical facility is highly vulnerable to external threats and equally vulnerable to its own unchecked operational momentum. An autonomous control plane coordinates these pillars through a continuous loop: sense, decide, act, learn. Sense pulls live telemetry to model the facility's state. Decide evaluates this against policy constraints. Act executes bounded controls. Learn compares physical results against expected outcomes, preserving audit evidence. The strict design rule for this autonomy is that no automated action can hold more authority than its reversibility,
its consequence limit, and its human oversight can justify. This control plane is not a license for software to run a facility without human supervision. It is a controlled mechanism for converting fragmented, localized automation into graduated and strictly auditable authority. The actual value of this entire architectural framework is realized only when it changes how organizations allocate capital and sequence their planning. Implementing this requires a focused 90-day approach. The first phase, spanning days 1 through 30, focuses on assessing the existing organism. Teams must establish hard baselines for power, cooling, network capability, and security to map out the critical dependencies between them. Days 31 through 60 focus on designing the target pattern. This is when leadership chooses the realistic density envelope, finalizes the integrated energy and thermal strategy, and writes the operating constitution. The final 30 days are dedicated to preparing a bounded pilot. The goal here is not simply to procure hardware, but to train the organization, define failure measures, and test the integrated system's resilience under stress. The output of this sprint is a decision quality blueprint. It forces teams to make painful, highly consequential trade-offs explicit long before massive capital is blindly committed to concrete and steel. The first generation of AI infrastructure was defined entirely by urgency: secure the chips, find the power, and get capacity online as fast as possible. The next generation will be judged strictly by its engineering maturity, its ability to produce intelligence while surviving energy constraints, thermal volatility, and community scrutiny. Intelligence has become infrastructure, and that infrastructure must now be engineered to behave intelligently. We have to stop assembling individual components and simply hoping the whole system survives the load. It is time to start designing and governing AI factories as living, deeply integrated cyber-physical organisms.